Good day, good folks. You are listening to talk that keeps you woke. And with your awakening, we hope that you will take in the information and knowledge we provide. So make sure you like and subscribe while you hop on this ride as we inform, persuade, entertain, and engage in discussion. Welcome to Pot Liquor Podcast, which is knowledge to feed your soul. I make up one half of Pot Liquor. I go by Dr. A, the inquisitive one, a great debater, Mr. Slow Talker, a rhetorician, and an all-around nice guy, and a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. The other half of Pot Liquor is my homie, my dear friend for more than 30 years, Kim Parker Jackson Esquire, the legal one, Mrs. Creativity, never obnoxious, the gifted one, a terrific lady, and a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Okay, partner, what's up? How you doing this week?
Hello, everyone. I am doing well, and I had a great week, Dr. A. It was very busy, but I was the MC at my kids' piano recital this week, and as you can see, I've unleashed my natural curls, so I could be ready for that occasion. And I can barely get my hat on today, but we made it through another week. I'm happy to be here. And how are you?
I'm okay. I can't complain. The semester is winding down, so some of my students are in panic mode because they haven't completed all the assignments. But me being a kind professor, I do give them a chance to make everything up. But other than that, I'm doing well. And so, welcome to Pot Liquor Podcast. And as always, if you're following the show, you know we always start off with our wow for the week. And our WOW stands for Words of Wisdom. And today we're coming from a former, an Olympic gold medalist who attended Tennessee State, Miss Wilma Rudolph. And her statement of wisdom is the triumph can't be had without the struggle. And this is apropos when it comes to civil rights, basic human rights. It takes struggle to go out and change things. You have to put the work in. She's coming from athletic perspective. She was a sprinter, so I'm imagining she's saying like the struggle is the workouts, the preparations, everything before the race is very important. And if you don't put the work in, you won't succeed, and you won't be triumphant. What do you say?
As usual, Dr. A, you nailed it. And I think I agree wholeheartedly with everything you said. And I always tell my kids, just like you said, the only place success comes before work is in the dictionary.
I like that term that you use there. I'm going to steal that from you. So, yes, so Wilma Rudolph, the triumph can't be had without the struggle.
Indeed.
Let us move on.
Oh, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Yeah, what's going on? Oh, what's going on? Oh, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Yeah, what's going on?
Okay, so it seems like another horrific school shooting at the Covenant School in Nashville took place. The question is, when is this all going to stop? When can we not deal with these shootings that are going on in schools? And then why are these people choosing to use schools to make a point? So we have 6 victims, well, probably more, but we have 6 people who died from this. We have and forgive me if I'm pronouncing the word wrong, and Evelyn, I think it is Dukakis, Mike Hill, who's a 61-year-old custodian, Catherine Kuntz, who was 60 years old, and she was the head of the school. They had a substitute teacher named Cynthia Peak who was 61. Haley Scruggs was a 9-year-old student. William Kinney was a 9-year-old student. And Evelyn, like I mentioned first, she was a 9-year-old student. Those who are watching on YouTube can see the faces of these victims. And there's no other way to explain it. Like, this is just tragedy when people lose their lives for really no apparent reason at all, at the hands of a deranged, upset individual. Is just shameful.
Indeed, it is. And I'm at this. I mean, you know how I feel about this. And at this point, I feel like this is exhausting. I feel like a broken record. And I'm really tired of having to say that this just underscores the need for sensible gun legislation. And until, the Republican Congress people do their jobs, and until they stop being paid by the gun lobby and put people over money and over their own selfishness with wanting to be reelected and just collect money from the gun lobby, then this is going to unfortunately continue to happen, because I think that the answer is the reasonable gun control legislation. And let's just start with an assault weapons ban. I mean, I don't see why we need to have weapons of war held by regular citizens. Like, why do regular citizens need weapons of war? And we need to just have a national assault weapons ban. I mean, and there's evidence to show that where there is a ban of this nature, we don't see these types of incidents continuing to happen. So I think it's going to require some real leadership in Congress, because there's already pending legislation by the Democratic Party. And so we just need Republican members of Congress to cross the aisles and support this legislation. And until then, unfortunately, this is going to continue to happen. I mean, this person has some mental health issues as well. We can start there, okay? Number one, assault weapons ban. Number two, let's find a way to keep these weapons out of the hands of people who have mental health issues. That's not hard to do. So
let me jump in right there. It's difficult to do if you require, unless you require this testing prior to, like they do a background check on you. That's what they do. So you don't have a history of mental health issues. What say you? I don't know if you should be required, or maybe part of the legislation is you should be required to take some sort of test.
Well, I mean, it would be a part of a background check. But there's people who feel that they shouldn't and there shouldn't be background checks because they feel like they have a Second Amendment right. And I agree with this. I don't have a problem with your Second Amendment, Second Amendment right. But I just feel at some point we have to relinquish our right in this case. So if I know that I have a Second Amendment right to hold an assault weapon, and if I thought that I could save children's lives, I would relinquish that right and turn in my weapon. I think that's the solution. We need some leaders, some owners of assault weapons to voluntarily relinquish their Second Amendment right to hold it and to turn it in. That's what I think we need. And perhaps the government could compensate people for their weapons, but we have to do something. We cannot continue on as if, nothing can be done, because something can be done.
I agree with that. Something needs to be done, but I think just and I'm not playing devil's advocate here, but just some pushback. Sometimes the people who don't want the mental health background checks is because of anxiety disorder that a lot of people may have, and that will flash. And so you're saying people who have anxiety wouldn't be able to purchase a handgun, and I don't know how fair that is or unfair that is.
Well, I think that, if when we put in measures to solve a problem like this, okay, some people are going to be negatively impacted. But if we're going to have a positive income where we're a positive outcome where we're saving children's lives, then I think that it's worth it. You know what I
Saving
mean?
anybody's lives would be worth it.
Exactly. Because at this point, we're all playing Russian roulette. I mean, it could be at a school, it could be at a church, it could be at a grocery store, it could be at a mosque, it could be
out in the open. Yeah,
right,
like the guy in
right.
Vegas that was shooting out of his window.
Exactly. So that we're all basically nobody's safe. That's the bottom line.
I want to put I want to make a statement about what can we do to protect these schools. I think that can be done. I don't think once school starts, I don't think anybody should be able to walk in an open door. Like a door should be locked in the school. The outside, you shouldn't be able to freely just walk in.
But
If you have an appointment, there should be somebody there. There should be some security there, to check you in. And I think that can be done. I think you should have locks automatically, and then the front office will have to buzz you in, or somebody would have to come down and get you.
Many schools already have that, but the other thing is that in this case, the shooter shot through the door. So, I mean, what are you going to put up, like iron bars and?
Well, no, bulletproof window.
This is crazy. Like,
I don't care how crazy it is. This is happening over and over
we
again.
have to talk we have to talk about this when we're talking about protecting babies, innocent children who are just.
Nobody's arguing against not protecting them. This would be protecting them. To me, there should.
Oh, you're saying in addition to the legislation?
Yeah, it should be. Like, what can we do? This is happening at schools, so we know this is going on at schools, at elementary, at public schools, at private schools. This was actually a private school.
Exactly.
So what I'm saying is these schools should be protected more. Now we've come to a situation, and look, police didn't used to have body cameras, right? But they have body cameras now, so that's an advancement, right?
I went to school for 12 years, and we never had this issue. I never had to do a shooter drill. I never had to go through a metal detector. I never had to do any of that.
It doesn't matter. Life has changed since we were kids. I'm not going to throw our age out there, but we went to elementary school a long time ago. Times are different now, far different. I walked to school growing up, right? Unsupervised. I didn't walk with my parents. I walked to school. That doesn't happen anymore. Everybody is dropped off now. So the world has become a more dangerous place. Saying it's ridiculous. Okay, yeah, it is, but
it's clearly America is more dangerous than other countries, though. Other countries do not have all of these shootings.
But that doesn't mean anything when you say
it does mean something because you can't get assault rifles in the other countries.
What I'm saying is nobody's disagreeing with you. What I am saying to you is while we're trying to get legislation, one thing we can do is make the schools safer. It sounds like you're saying we shouldn't have to do that. Yeah, we do now. That's what I'm saying. Okay. Yeah, we do. On top of the legislation, yeah, we need to get rid of weapons of war. I agree with that. Assault rifles, I agree with that. I think these bills should be, but we've been talking about this a long time. So my whole thing now is like, why are these people being able to walk into schools?
Well,
Why are they being able to?
this person had an assault weapon and
Right.
shot into the school.
Right.
And
So
he
if
shot the door down.
but
You
if
see what I'm saying?
yeah,
So
exactly, because there
yeah.
was no security there. If there was an armed police officer there,
they would have gotten shot by an assault rifle. That's what it would. Well,
no,
that's
you
what would
don't
happen.
know what that can happen because their eyes are different and they're trained to look for things. So if you first of all, the parking lots from schools, like where you park, you don't park where unless you drive up to the door. You got to get an assault rifle. It's not easily concealed, right? So you got to drive up. Somebody going to see you walking to the right, and then something can happen. What I'm saying is better to have them there than not.
But can I just say this as a parent? I don't know that I'm okay with someone inside the school with my child there armed. I mean, anything can happen. The weapon can accidentally be discharged. A child could steal it from the person, take it off their hip. That makes me nervous. When
you know that they're
arming.
You know there are police officers in schools, right?
Not any of the schools that I sent.
Yeah, well, okay. I've taught in public schools. There are police officers in schools. Not even that. When I was in Arizona, and this is Tucson. This is Tucson, Arizona. We ain't talking about New York City or Chicago. They had a police station in each school. Like they each had an office in the school with two armed cops in the school. This was middle school and high school. This is in Tucson, Arizona.
But I don't know that is actually going to deter people who are determined to do this. If they have a weapon, they may be eventually gunned down, but God knows what damage they can cause before they're gunned down.
Are you saying we shouldn't do it? That's what I'm saying. It sounds like you're saying that.
Listen, I think.
Hold on. Let me get the question now. It seems like you're saying we shouldn't visit that or look at that as an option. Are you saying that?
I'm saying I'm open to all possible solutions, but I'm just saying I think it would be more effective to have the legislation so that an assault weapon would not be in an unstable person's hands in the first place.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm not disagreeing with that.
Okay.
I'm not disagreeing with that. But I'm saying we have been talking about legislation for a long time.
Yeah,
and still not there. But what I'm saying, what is happening is these folks are going to schools. Yeah, the guy in Buffalo shot up the grocery store. Yeah, churches have been shot up, mosques have been shot up, right? Like I said, out in Vegas, just people in public have been shot out. But one place that this happens frequently is in public schools since the whole trench coat mafia back in Columbine in Colorado, right? When we had this happen, then the guy in Colorado shot up the theater.
Yeah.
So I agree with legislation because what I'm talking about only protects the school. I know the church I go to, we have armed officers. We have several police officers that attend the church and that are security, and you see them in the church and they're present because you're right. Society has changed. Yeah. This world is a little different right now. And so I think that's a necessary precaution. Now, you're right. This person can be a trained shooter that's deranged and could pop somebody from a distance. That can happen. But to me, it's better to have them there and not to. And I don't disagree when you say it's like, wow, I got to send my kids to school where they're armed officers. But what I'm saying is too much is happening. I think that schools that don't have it, these officers, should talk to schools that have these officers and see how much of a difference it has made.
Well, I'm open to hearing that evidence, but it just really makes me nervous. Just makes me nervous to have kids around weapons. They shouldn't have to be around weapons. They're inherently dangerous objects, and accidents happen all the time. You know what I mean? So how about the 6-year-old that we talked about in Virginia that shot his teacher in the chest when he had a gun?
He wasn't a cop.
No, but the point of what I'm saying is that children around weapons can go, there's more, it could potentially be very, very dangerous. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. And so why, if we're trying to protect the lives of our children, why are we exposing them to inherently dangerous objects? That's all.
I'm saying police officers. That's what I'm saying. The police officers around the world, everywhere. So police have guns. I don't
like ones in Uvalde that sit around and watch.
If your kid walks into a 7-Eleven and a cop is on his break getting a donut, right? He's going to see a cop. Most kids have seen cops and know that cops have guns. So that's what I mean with that.
And let us move on. And let us move on.
All right. That was a spicy debate. Now we're going to move on to former president Donald Trump.
Oh God. Oh God. What is he doing now?
Well, you start this off.
Why do we have to talk about? I thought we were past having to talk about Trump, and here he comes, we're rearing his ugly head again. But yeah, so apparently
he didn't mean to rear his head on this. I'm sure he don't want this one. He don't want this smoke.
I don't want this smoke. I know he was just indicted on, I don't know, what are they calling it? Indicted for paying off a porn star, to paying hush money
to
Stormy Daniels in 2018.
I think it was before the election.
Well, actually, no, it was 2016 for an affair that he had with Stormy Daniels, a porn star, in 2006. So yeah, he was indicted in New York, and to me, this could be much ado about nothing, because I feel like there's nothing at this point that's going to keep him from running for president. I mean, if he's convicted of this crime, he won't be able to vote, but there's nothing prohibiting him from running for president. You realize that, right? Yeah, that's why, what was that?
I understand.
Yeah. So that's why I'm like, this out of all of the things that he has done, all of the laws that he
said,
has
I'm
broken,
not afraid of what's to come.
Right. But my thing is, I'm just a little bit disappointed that this was his first indictment. Like, why after the January 6th committee turned over all of this evidence of him inciting this riot and trying to attempt to overthrow the election, they turned over all of this evidence to the Justice Department, and there's no indictment. Like, that's the one we need him indicted on, because to me, that would seem to come with harsher penalties. And I feel like nobody cares about this affair that he had with a woman back in 2006. While I would be happy to see him in handcuffs and see him in prison for all of the things that he's done. I mean, there's a long list of all of the lies and all of the laws that he's broken. So I would like nothing more than to see him imprisoned, but I'm not sure if this is the one that's going to get it done. I mean, how about him trying to steal votes in Georgia? I mean, we have him on tape, like basically begging for votes to be changed.
Yeah, that's still pending too.
Right. So I need, for everybody who can possibly indict Donald Trump, I need you to get cracking and do your jobs, because the last thing I want to see is him run for president.
Listen, if he runs, he's not going to run uncontested. And so that says a lot right there. And trust me, when he's on his campaign and he's debating whoever he's going to debate, the indictment is going to come up, Like,
And he's going to
he's
say,
not to be trusted.
right.
But he's running against another Republican. This is not I'm talking about in the primary.
For example, Mike Pence.
Or
And,
DeSantis. And Mike Pence is shuffling backwards,
right.
talking about this is like Pence. My advice to you, I wouldn't say anything to help this man out after what he did for you. He has no care in the world
Right.
for
He
you.
called for you to be
Yeah,
hanged.
like to be hurt. Yeah, so I don't understand why you're vouching for this guy.
I think the one thing that we have to do, and I know it's not going to happen since we have a Republican-controlled House of Representatives, even though we have a democratically controlled Senate, it would be great if they would close this loophole and make it clear that anyone who is convicted of a felony is not qualified to run for president. We need to do that because there's no law in place that says that.
I'm not worried about Trump.
Okay.
I don't.
Yeah, people said that the first time.
He lost the second time though, and it was clear that folks didn't want him in the White House the second time. It was clear. Yeah, it was clear.
Those votes were almost.
No, it wasn't 100. No,
I mean, if it wasn't for the electoral
college, after those mail-in votes came in, I'm not concerned about. I don't think the country, even Republicans, most Republicans don't want to see him back because he's too much of a disturbance.
I hope you're right.
So they might agree with some of his issues, but there are other Republicans that are close to his ideology and his way of thinking.
Well, it appears that a lot of Republicans are trying to distance themselves from him. So that's a good thing. But Lindsey Graham is still caping for Donald Trump. So I just want him to go away. Somebody, can you please go ahead and convict him, get him convicted and get him in prison so we don't have to deal with Donald Trump anymore? Thank you.
All right.
And let us move on.
Oh, by the way, this is important. Since his indictment, he raised $4 million off of this. That's scary. So people still, I think, support him. But anyway, let us move on.
And let us move on. And let us move on.
But I heard that.
All right. So next up, State Senator out of California has proposed a bill entitled the Ebony Alert Bill for missing Black children and young women. According to the LA Times, the bill will ensure that resources and attention are given so missing Black women and Black children receive the same attention that their counterparts receive. What say you?
Well, I am definitely a proponent of this legislation. But I mean, as usual, I have questions, and I know we don't have answers to those questions at this point, but I still feel the need to ask the questions. And basically, I understand, I see why we would want to have an Ebony Alert, just like we have Amber Alerts. But how is this going to actually cause the media to focus on Black children and Black women who go missing? I mean, because right now
it's not the media as much as they want law enforcement to focus on them.
Okay.
So
with that as well.
Let me read it. According to the Black and Missing Foundation, 38% of children reported missing in the U.S. are Black. The U.S. population is 14% Black. Black children are disproportionately classified as runaways in comparison to their white counterparts who are classified as missing, and therefore many Black children do not receive the Amber Alert. Black women and girls are at an increased risk of being harmed and trafficked. A recent report of human trafficking incidents across the country also found that 40% of sex trafficking victims were identified as Black women. So SB 673, that's the name of the bill, would authorize a law enforcement agency to request that an ebony alert be activated if that agency determines that it would be an effective tool in the investigation of a missing Black youth or young Black woman.
But my point is there was nothing that was prohibiting them from authorizing such a thing with the Amber Alert when a Black person was missing. So if they didn't do it with the Amber Alert, what I don't understand, like what is going to cause them to do it with the Ebony Alert? You see what I'm saying?
I guess the resources.
Can you elaborate?
I don't know. I guess like they're talking about monies. Like when you have to investigate somebody, it takes time to do so. So sometimes like they're saying they're classifying African-American kids as runaways.
Like, oh yeah, he just ran away. He's not missing.
Right, exactly.
So what changed? Just because you have an Ebony Alert now you're going to say, okay, he's
if there are resources that are going to be dedicated to an Ebony Alert, yeah, that might happen now. This has been going on, like these disproportionate numbers,
right?
They have been going on, and we get Amber Alerts, all the time.
I know it comes on your cell phone, and you get that
your watch,
and it tells you what vehicle they were in, the license plate number, and all of that.
Yeah.
So I'm all for it. I'm all for solutions. Especially when it helps these sort of what do you call it? Disparate situations, when it's one thing for white people and another thing for Black people. So if it's going to help more Black people, I'm a proponent of it.
Yeah.
And let us move on.
Okay, so we are going to move on to our second plug, but I am also going to mention our first plug because we did not do our product for today. So we're going to take on two things here at one time. First, we're going to talk about New Balance, the sneaker. All right. It's a product that I use. I just picked up a new pair of these.
Oh, those are nice.
The cushion in the bottom. I'm a heavy guy. So when I run, I need a lot of cushion, or I'm heavier than what I used to be. Let's say that. And it's all about comfort as you get older. Style, I try to, fashion a little bit, but it's more about practicability with me. So yes, that's one. And the second thing that we're looking at is our brand, which is Google today. So being a professor in school, Google is used a lot. The Gmail, the Google Drive, contacts, YouTube is owned by Google. Google Search, Google Maps is used by me. Also, you got Google Slides. You have everything. So Google is the brand today. Of course, is uber successful, but this is something that just like almost like your cell phone, like it's hard to go without your cell phone.
Yeah,
for me, it's hard to go without Google, because it's become such a part of my life. So yes, Google is next.
And let us move on.
We have a question. It's a question. Address the question. This is a question. So what's the question? Answer the question. Okay. So the question of the week is, what is always coming but never arrives? That is our question of the week. The first person to answer it by emailing us at potliquorshow@gmail.com will uh, win the prize that we have for you.
You put it on the screen
I will do that in a second.
for those
I'm
of us who
trying
like
to
spelling.
give out the answer for last week. Give me a second with that. So last week's question was what gets wetter the more it dries, and the answer was the towel. The towel was the answer to last week's question. And for those of you watching on um, YouTube or Twitch, our email I just put up, potliquor, POTLIQUORSHOW @gmail.com. That is the email address you're going to email us at. And
let us move on.
all right, so we get to the portion of the show that's very informative. We have a guest.
Well, hello there. Let me introduce our next guest. So,
hello,
okay,
how are you?
I'm good. Let me bring you in the right way. Let me bring you in the right way. Okay, so our guest is Dr. Madeline Sutton, also known as Dr. Madeline. She is a board-certified obstetrician and gynecologist, nationally recognized author, speaker, and CEO of drmadelinemd.com. She has over 20 years of experience working with women as a physician and as a scientific expert, having also served at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. She specializes in sexual and reproductive health, helping busy women reach their personal goals for optimal gynecologic care and birth control needs on their time so they can have maximum freedom and control. Dr. Madeline earned her BS in psychology, pre-med at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., her MD and MPH degrees from Columbia University, and she completed her OBGYN residency at the University of Medicine and Dentistry of New Jersey. So Dr. Madeline is qualified to talk about any number of things, but today we're going to focus on sexual health as a part of overall wellness, and we're going to dive into the 5 steps to sexual freedom. Please welcome Dr. Madeline. Hi, Dr. Madeline.
Hello, how are you?
You have done so much. I mean, we had a lot to, but we want people to know that we're talking to an actual real expert. So
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Good. So tell us, what exactly are those 5 steps to sexual freedom that you talk about?
Yes. So the 5 steps. So these are steps that I came up with after, years of working with women and kind of my own personal journey and things that I would hear over and over again when I was talking to different women. So the first step is something that sometimes a lot of people take for granted. But the first step is self-awareness. And when I say self-awareness, I mean, just having the wherewithal, the strength, the courage to examine where someone is personally in terms of their sexuality and all of that stuff. But it also means, like, on an anatomical place, knowing what your body looks like. What does your body look like? What feels good for you? What doesn't feel good? And if you do have a partner, being able to kind of share that. So that's the first part, is self-awareness. The second thing is know your options. And when I say know your options, that could include a range of things for cis women who have heterosexual partners. And when I say cisgendered, I don't know if you guys know what I mean. So I just, okay.
Well, explain it to our audience.
Yeah.
Okay. So cisgender women, that basically means those who were women at birth, identified as women as at birth, as opposed to transgender women, and they may have been born with male parts, and at some point in their life journey, they decided to transition to being a female. So
Okay.
those would be transgender women, and the other women who were born women at birth would be cisgender women. So when I say know your options, I mean know all the different things available to you. If you're a cisgender woman and you're trying to have sex without necessarily getting pregnant every time you have sex, then know what your options are in terms of birth control, in terms of safe sex, in case you want to try to make sure you can avoid infections. So that's what I mean by know your options.
Okay.
And the third thing is, once you have self-awareness, you know your options, work with a provider who can get you what you need. Sometimes that's a physician, sometimes that's a nurse practitioner, midwife, a range of folks are out there. The fourth thing is establish a safe space. Sometimes we don't understand that enough, or sometimes we take for granted the importance of having a safe space. And sometimes it's very hard for people to get to, you know, especially if you're busy, if you're living in a space with other people. But establishing a safe space is very important. And lastly, would be just to activate whatever those previous 4 steps were, activating them not only once, but anytime something shifts in your life that might require that you reevaluate and evolve a little bit differently. And that topic comes up a lot. The topic of evolving and shifting comes up a lot for women in our age group who are going through like perimenopause and menopause. They're trying to figure out, okay, well, how do I do this sexuality thing differently?
Right.
And I think it's always refreshing to have that conversation because, you know, historically we've been told that women kind of lose their desire at that age, but more and more women are like, no, I have the desire. I'm trying to get my partner to keep up.
Oh, right. So when you talk about acquiring birth control or knowing what your options are, is that so that you are not concerned about an unplanned pregnancy and therefore you will feel less inhibited and more sexually free to enjoy your partner? Or as you say, with your safe space, it could be by yourself. Who knows? I mean, I don't know, but
it could be by yourself, you know. Definitely there's a whole range of things that you can do by yourself with toys and other things. But if you have a partner and you are interested in having sex and not necessarily getting pregnant at the time, then yes, the idea behind making sure you understand birth control options and choose something that works for you is so that you can have more of what I like to call worry-free, joyful sex. You know, there's a whole range of emotions that you don't have to necessarily have at the top of your mind if you're having sex for the fun and enjoyment of it, but you're not necessarily interested in having a child at that time. And sometimes, you know, I think historically, a lot of what we've been taught when we were younger is that you have sex for these certain purposes, and that anything outside of sex for the purpose of having children is not necessarily good. And I think that's not really the way we should think about it. You know, we have these body parts that are with us for our whole lives, even when we're outside of the aged window of being able to have children. And, you know, we have those body parts for a reason. So let's make sure we understand them and use them and enjoy them.
And I guess you also don't want to have to be worried about STDs. So that makes you feel more, you know, free to enjoy your partner. Yeah.
Exactly. Absolutely.
And then the other question I have is, when you talk about the first step, awareness of self, if you as a woman, you have come to know yourself very well and you know what it would take to please you sexually, how do you balance that with not hurting your partner's feelings if you have to tell them that perhaps they're not doing something the way you need it to be done in order to fully enjoy the experience? Do you have any advice on that? Like, what is a tactful way, or I don't know, or a way women can feel more comfortable making their desires known?
Yes, that's a great question, Kim. You know, I don't know if I have a range of responses, because sometimes when someone has had a partner for a long time, it might be easier, right? Because ideally, if they've been partnered for over a decade or so, they have a communication style that kind of works for them. They can say things to each other more easily. They can have real talk in a way that won't offend the other. But that's not always the case. Sometimes people are sensitive. And so when people are sensitive, I think one of the nice conversations I like to have with my ladies is that sometimes if they have a sensitive partner, they will frame it as, oh, I was in my doctor's office the other day and we were talking about this, and she suggested I use someone else as part of the opening the door. If that makes it easier, if you have a sensitive partner who may have trouble hearing some things, I think it's always a great angle to kind of say, you know what, I saw my doc the other day and we were talking about this and she suggested XYZ. I think that's a nice way to open the conversation. And then I have other ladies who, in this time of like social media and different ways that people meet partners, I have some folks that have no problem saying what they need to say to a complete stranger, because maybe that's the only reason that they're seeing that person would be to have sex. And so they are complete open book when it comes to sharing what they want and need.
Right. There will be no faking of orgasms in that.
Right. Exactly.
You did not get it done, buddy.
Right. Exactly.
So let me jump in right
this
now.
Organ and do this.
Let me jump in right now. I think that I need to have my voice heard. So I'm speaking strictly like over the years we've been educated on the male and female bodies. As men get older, sometimes they suffer from low libido and they suffer from low testosterone. This is a real thing that happens. They say men, their sexual peak is around 25 years old, 25 to 27. Women reach theirs at the age of 40. So there is a difference going on. So the masculinity in men may have, it begins to grow more sensitive if your instrument is not working anymore. And your instrument cannot be working due to several things. Like a lot of, I'm going to just speak for African-American males. A lot of African-American males suffer from hypertension. So they have high blood pressure, and sometimes taking blood pressure pills, the physicians will tell you that will cause you also to have low libido. There are testosterone shots that you can take that that's a possibility that they could have you with that. They have this shock wand therapy to increase the blood vessels in your penis so you can maintain an erection more so like when you're younger. I encourage men all the time, like, your health is really going to play a role in your sexual performance. And then when your sexual performance or activity decreases, you become more sensitive, because growing up, you hear like being a man, part of that, not just being a protector and bringing home the money, is being able to put it down in the bedroom. Right? To stay erect and perform sexually, like a lion. But then when your lion reduces itself to a kitten again, then it's a hard topic or a sensitive topic to touch. So I do understand what Kim's saying, having that careful conversation. But I would tell women, when you have the conversation, think how that male is feeling. You have to try to put yourself in his shoes, because when you're talking about him, he thinks you're talking about his manhood. I try to tell brothers not to receive it that way. You have your woman, you just can't forget about her. People, when you're young, you feel like the world will end at 40. Like, I teach young kids, they think like, well, you old. I'm like, no, we're not old. Like, people are still engaging in sexual activities late into their 70s. It goes on.
Yeah.
So it can be, you have to know your partner. I agree with Dr. Sutton. Like, I was going to say same thing. If you've been married for over 20 years, that conversation should be easier to have. But I do agree, it takes a gentle touch to have it, because if men tie their manhood to their sexual prowess, then that's when sometimes I would say, I mean, you don't have to, but I would warn you as a friend, like, I think you need to be careful with that. But the question I have because I teach a lot of younger kids, and over decades, things change. Right. So as far as like when Kim and I were growing up, right, I know like if a woman had more than one partner, she was labeled. Oh, uh, she's a hoe, she's a whore, and it was a double standard.
Yeah.
But today, women today in school, and I teach at a PWI and a HBCU, so this is not about race. Women with these dating sites are more openly aggressive, like to approach men, and men say like they don't have to do a lot today because all they have to do is post and somebody's going to swipe right. And it's like, oh, wow, I got these people interested in me that I would have never known were interested in me. But I think when they're doing these hookups, and I'm not saying every kid is like this, but when these folks are doing these hookups, they're using protection doing the penis vagina sex, but they're not always using it doing mouth to penis or mouth to vagina or mouth to anal, right? I talk to them about dental dams and, the guys when you're, performing fellatio for your lady, or women performing for their ladies. And then I talk about a condom on your penis while a woman or a man is going down on their man. 'Cause people think like, well, yeah, you don't usually catch STDs that way. And I'm like, no, do your research. And I'll pull up an article for them and say, yeah, well, what is a dental? A lot of people haven't even heard of dental dams. Right. They don't even know what they are. And for our listeners, a dental dam is a little like kind of like a plastic, almost like saran wrap type of material that you put between a lady or down near the vagina before you engage. So like that is something like when you talked about that, like that is to me one of the most important things, like really protect yourself given what's going on out in the world.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up those points because something that's probably not talked about as much is, I don't know if you guys have seen like when the national reports come out in terms of sexually transmitted infections, what's been happening. But each year over the last several years, STIs or sexually transmitted infections have been increasing in this country. So it's even more important that we have these conversations about how do you protect yourself, whether you're having vaginal sex, anal sex, oral sex. You can be exposed to and acquire gonorrhea, chlamydia, syphilis in any orifice, in any hole in your body. So it's really important to have that conversation. So, I get that all the time from folks that question about, will it feel the same? And, it really, you have to be a little bit creative with it. You have to throw some, maybe some flavors in there or just some different things that might help you do it in a way that protects you and your partner, but also feels good and feels exciting. So absolutely, dental dams. There are female condoms that people can use that a lot of people don't like because they find it quote unquote messy. But we have different options out there. It's just a matter of figuring out what works for you. Also, there are sometimes people, if they decide to be a monogamous couple, sometimes if they don't like using those devices, they'll go in and they'll get tested together. And they'll say, okay, if we're going to only be with each other, let's make sure we're starting from a clean slate. And that way I can feel more comfortable about, maybe not using something. Yeah. But, that's a very individual decision. Sometimes my ladies are like, well, how did I get that? We're monogamous. I'm like, you're monogamous. You can never say what your partner is doing.
Good point. That's an excellent point.
Yeah, it's never easy knowing what your partner is doing.
And I just found out at my university, like you can get blood tests. You can get tests to go to the doctors both. And I tell that, to me, that's one of the most responsible things to do. But I still say protect yourself all the way around. When they ask the question, but it don't feel the same, I say it feels better than an STD, right? or it feels better knowing that you just impregnated a woman, and that's a long haul. So you're gonna let that 7 to 10 minutes, and you got an 18 to 20-year haul with the kid. You got to weigh those things out, because you got to think about your future. Because is it worth? If your plan is not to have a baby at 19, and most of the kids that's their plan, not to have a baby at 19 years old, then you have to really think about that. You know, people think it gets hot and heavy, and it can go from 0 to 60 real quick. But one thing I'm finding out, all races, this is not just a black issue, this is a white issue. Parents are really not discussing sex education like they should be at home. They're not educating their kids on it. And I know I'm in the Bible Belt now. I'm down in Texas. Abstinence is a big thing. But to me, you can tell them to remain abstinent and still educate them at the same time. You got to educate them about their body. Like you're at a level where you're a woman now. You're a man. You produce, semen, and woman, you can get fertilized and you can become pregnant. If you stay away from sex, you won't have that issue. If you do self-enjoyment, you won't have that issue. But once you bring another party in, that's a possibility, and they're not being talked to at home about that.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. Especially in some of the southern states where a lot of times you just can't get, at the school system, sometimes you can't get the parents to approve to let the school board allow the courses to be taught in the schools. And then at home, some people are just shy, or maybe they don't even know themselves. But I agree with you 100%. The number of times I've had parents in my office trying to, whoop a 12 or 13-year-old because they thought they weren't having sex and they come up pregnant. Ooh. I mean, it's hard. It's hard. And the reality is, and this is what I tell the parents every time, especially if they catch it early enough and they're able to do whatever next step they need to do. If you don't talk real talk with your young adult, your teenager, and let them know that there are certain body parts that are going to feel good in a certain way that they won't be used to. And if they're not prepared for that, it can get overwhelming. And like you said, stuff can go from 0 to 60 or 0 to 180 real quick.
Yeah.
Clothes fall off, things happen. It's one of those things that we have to be ready to deal with and talk honestly with our young people about, so that they'll be prepared. Oh yeah, mom told me this was going to feel great. Let me go get the condoms that I carry in my purse. Or I have 3 sons. When they were coming up, I just had a drawer. I was like, I got condoms in this drawer. If you don't want to ask me any questions at a certain time, just grab a condom.
That's a good idea.
Just make sure you replenish it and you keep it moving.
Scolding and whoopings, it doesn't beat the power of sex.
I agree.
It just doesn't. Like I would have took it once I started having sex. I would have took a beating any day for it. So it's just like that. But, and what I'm saying is, like, you can't underestimate that power. Like, God put us on the planet and made that. For most people, there are women and men that have pain doing sex, and I'm not trying to go down that street, but I just want to let folks know. But for most people, it's an enjoyable thing, and so it's so enjoyable. It's so powerful that don't think that you scolding somebody is going to make. I know people who ran away from home, right? And to live with their boyfriends.
Yes.
And things like that nature. So like I said, if you educate your child and talk to them about it, at least they'll be prepared for it.
Exactly.
Eventually it's going to happen.
It's definitely going to happen.
It's definitely going to happen.
So I do have another question. So you talked about sexual health as a part of overall wellness.
Yes.
So do you mean that physically, psychologically, and mentally, or both?
I mean, yes, all of it. So, more and more in this world of medicine, I think people are understanding more that it's not just about the clinical stuff. It's not just about checking your blood pressure. It's about how are you doing overall as a human being, trying to navigate through all these different things that we have going on in our lives, And so, yes, sexual health is a part of that. Mental health is definitely a part of that. When you are sexually healthy, and if you're able to feel comfortable expressing your sexuality, how you enjoy doing it, and in ways and places that you enjoy doing it, you're going to have reduced stress. You're going to have a better sense about yourself, your well-being. That's going to improve your mental health. And you guys know across the board, if our mental health is okay, that has an impact on everything. Our blood pressure, the choices that we might make in terms of the things we want to put in our body. I mean, the mental health component to all that is amazing. It's only, I think, over the last 10 plus years being fully understood. And I think during COVID, people began to really talk about it and try to understand it in a different way again. So yes, when I say wellness, overall wellness, I mean the whole nine. When I have someone come into my office for an annual GYN visit, we're going to hit all of those things. We're going to check your blood pressure. I'm going to listen to your heart and lungs. I'm going to do your breast exam. If you need a pap test, we'll do that. We'll talk about your sexual health. And I got to tell you, for most people, they enjoy that conversation because it's not something that we've routinely done. Historically, docs aren't comfortable talking about sex a lot of times, especially Black and brown docs, because it's something that's been kind of taboo in some of our communities, these whole sexual health discussions. But when those discussions happen, I mean, for most folks, especially my older ladies, they're like, "Whoa, I'm so glad you brought that up," because maybe their vagina's a little dry and they need something to go there, or maybe they are widowed and they met someone new and they're trying to figure out how to kind of navigate the new joy that they have because this new person is laying it down. So all those things have to be openly discussed as part of your overall wellness, and we should. The more we discuss it and the more we normalize those conversations, the easier it'll be, and the more I think all of us will feel comfortable understanding that sexual wellness is a part of overall wellness.
Yeah. When women talk about OBGYNs, I'm like, that is something that women have had in their lives for a long time. But men, we really don't have that. And so to me, it's just like, I'm loquacious, so I'm very social, I'm very talkative, and I'm not ashamed. So I encourage men, and I don't care what color you, to have that conversation with your physician about how your member is working or not working. Don't be afraid to take a pill. It doesn't make you less than a man, especially if you really not taking care of yourself. If you eat right, and you work out. Some men, I know some men who are in very good shape, but still suffer from high blood pressure, and then vice versa. Some men that are not in shape and they don't suffer from it. So, sometimes it's hereditary, the stress that Black and brown men have to face, and men, period. I'm not going to exclude white men, period, women, period. But you taking that pill, your doctor can tell you about that. So you taking like the Viagra and Cialis and things of that nature. Trust me, you'll feel better. Your wife or your partner will feel better, and your life will be enhanced, right? Because especially like if you don't self-medicate or have other vices, and I don't know if I want to use the word vices, but if you don't have anything else to relax you, because I'm not going to call wine a vice, but I'm saying some things to relax you. One of the things, like sex to me, is right next to eating, and I love to eat. So it's just like those are two things that that can calm you down and relax you, and then it makes your relationship. If you have a healthy sexual relationship, a healthy sexual life, it makes your relationship better.
Yeah, more intimate.
More intimate. Yeah, and especially when you get older, you start caring more about that. So I would encourage men who are listening to start building that relationship and that trust with your primary care doctor. And if your doctor is unwilling to have that conversation, you might want to look at getting another physician.
Yeah.
Because that's important to do that. Remember, your insurance, you're taking care of. That physician is getting paid. I never had a problem with any physician, no matter what color or sex they were, to have that conversation with me. So that's a good thing. I encourage that, because some men are like, they're too prideful, and pride comes before the fall. Remember that.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Dr. Madeline, have you found yourself having to counsel a couple together when a woman comes into your office and you bring the husband in, or maybe the other partner?
Yes. definitely that happens, especially I would say the two times it happens most. So, of course, a lot of times partners are there when a woman is pregnant and there are
Mhm.
different questions that they have.
Yeah.
But in the postpartum period, and then I would say this, the next time when I see a lot of partners being brought in might be around perimenopause. And they're kind of similar in a sense because when a woman is postpartum, her hormones are shifting. And, if she's breastfeeding, she has decreased estrogen, which is similar to what happens when someone is perimenopausal. And so there are things that are very similar. Her vagina might be dry. Sometimes, there's questions around, okay, doc, well, it's been 6 weeks. Can we get back to it yet? But, they have to agree on that because,
Right.
you know,
True.
I tell the woman all the time, I was like, you're cleared. And sometimes women will say, well, if they reach out to you, let them know you told me I needed 4 more weeks. So, something like that. So it really depends, but
Right.
yes, more and more people are wanting their partner to be a part of these conversations because I think more and more, especially this newer generation with social media and everything, there's a lot more conversations openly about sex and activity and where people are and
Yeah.
wanting to be transparent with a partner so that they can feel they're getting their needs met and vice versa. That more and more people are having those conversations. And so, yeah, I welcome those conversations. And what it also does, which is to bounce off of Dr. A's point, sometimes it opens up enough of a door that the male partner, if there's a male partner, might feel more comfortable,
Right.
say, hey, well, this was going on. I wasn't really sure what to do about it. What do you think? And what I always like to do is keep like a small number of folks in my head of folks who I can send a male partner to if they have a specific question that is outside of my purview, or if they're willing to go the next step and talk to their own primary care provider about something that they might need, whether it's Cialis or some Viagra or something like that, or if it might be okay with whatever medications that they're on.
Okay.
Sometimes they have to look and see what other medications are you taking, and is this medicine going to be okay with those other medications?
Right.
But yes, I definitely welcome those conversations. I think they tend to be a relief for both partners when those joint conversations happen.
Yeah.
And so, I always encourage them. When we were doing COVID, we were doing a lot of telehealth. And that
Mhm.
was a great time too, because people might have their partner right there and they'd be like, oh,
Right.
come here, honey. I wanted to ask this while the doctor's on the screen.
Right.
So yeah, that was another good time when people were like, okay, well, let's get our questions out there and find a way toward next steps if next steps are needed to get them where they want to be.
Awesome. Okay. And so my final question,
Yes.
and then Dr. A, you can jump in here if you want to. I'm just curious about patients who may have some sexual trauma in their past, or they may have some type of psychological block from, I don't know, maybe like the Madonna whore complex type of issues.
Mhm.
Do you encounter that? And how do you advise those patients? Do you refer them to maybe a psychological counselor, like a psychiatrist or therapist, or what do you advise in those cases?
Oh, absolutely. Great question, Kim. So yeah, sexual trauma is something that we come across way too commonly,
Mm,
whether it's something, a response that we get when we're just gathering the history, or whether it's something that is triggered when it's time for a certain part of the exam. It's something that comes up more often than you might realize. And
mm,
so one of the things I always do is, I take a step back and I say, okay, well, let's talk about what's going on. If you're comfortable, and tell me, what you're comfortable with, what you're not comfortable with, and if there's something that happened in your past that is that you're reminded of while we're here having this conversation. Most times, people feel comfortable or they have a relief again if they're sharing something for the first time. There are some people that share things for the first time, especially if it's at the point where you're trying to do a pelvic exam. A
mm,
pelvic exam is something that will, if someone has never shared before, that pelvic exam or the attempt to do a pelvic exam is going to probably trigger something.
mm.
I always like to take the time to have a conversation if they're comfortable, because sometimes they're not comfortable with the first visit. It might be the second or third visit before there's comfort. But I also always like to suggest or invite them to be open to a conversation with a psych professional or a psychiatrist or someone who might be able to help them navigate something that might be a very challenging conversation for them. So that's definitely something that I do. More and more, just like many things in this country, we're at a deficit in terms of having enough behavioral health and mental health persons for all the different support that people need. And so I find that that's something that is a challenge, but there are different resources if people are willing to consider, not just a physician provider, but, LCSWs, people who have PhDs in psychology and all that stuff. As long as people are open to the full range of providers that are out there, I'm successful with linking them up with someone. And most people will do okay once they have a chance to share. And, if they need medication, if they're at a point of severe depression and it requires both therapy and medicines, people are open to that as well. So,
Yes, because those people who may have experienced that sexual trauma should still have hope that they can also have sexual freedom as well and enjoy.
Absolutely. And the good part is that most do. The patients that I've taken care of over the years, most will reach a place of coming to be a better understanding and feel like they are healing from that trauma, and also be able to have a healthy current day sexual relationship with someone of their choosing. So it can be tricky when they're first going down that path, but it's definitely doable.
Awesome.
Okay, so before we get you out of here, you gave a lot of information that's very important. Are you in the Maryland or the DMV area?
I'm not actually. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, Atlanta, Georgia. Okay, I know Black women down there too. So because I want to, is it okay that we put your information out?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I have your email address. I do have that, but I'm sure if you have her information, because there are probably people listening to this, like you said, they might be like, okay, well, Dr. Sutton is open to have these conversations. And, after hearing her, I feel comfortable talking with her. So they might seek you out. So please allow us to I always try to ask permission to put your information out there when we broadcast this.
Absolutely. Happy to do that. I tend to practice, I do see patients actively at Grady Hospital. There's a women's health clinic there, and at other places in Atlanta, but where I see patients one-on-one is mostly through Morehouse School of Medicine at Grady Hospital.
Okay, well, until then, tell folks how they can follow you and support you online on social media.
Sure. Thank you. So my handle on all social media accounts, including Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, is Dr. Madeline MD. So that's DrMadeline MD. And what I try to do on those different platforms is not only share good science and factually correct information as it relates to women's health and our bodies and everything, but also some inspiration. There's so much going on, so much that people have on their heads and on their hearts. So I just try to inspire, keep people lifted, and keep people encouraged. I'm a big advocate for self-care for women, but also for men. I mean, there's a lot going on in this world, whether it has to do with Black and brown experiences or just experiences for women in general. And so that's what I try to do on those platforms, share helpful health information, public health information, as well as encourage and inspire.
And you've also written a book that they can purchase as well on your website.
Yes. So the website is www.incontrolbook.com. And so In Control, what I did, I had some time, when we would have those 14-day mandatory quarantines back in 2020. What I wanted to do, in the world of OBGYN, the world of women's health, we were kind of looking at the Roe v. Wade thing. And I was like, okay, this thing is about to be, it could potentially go in a different direction. So one of the things I wanted to do was really write something that could help women have access to information, so that if we got to the point where we are now, where Roe v. Wade went away, people could understand, their bodies, their sexuality. And mostly the book In Control is about birth control. So it's trying to break through the myths. There are a lot of myths out there about birth control. You know, with my sons, when they were like late teenagers and they shared with me that they had started, you know, we would have these conversations and, you know, there was still a lot of the myths out there. Oh, she can't take hormones because her cousin's aunt's sister, you know, did something years ago and they gained weight, or they had an IUD and got an infection, you know, stories from like years ago. And just the book is filled with information that's scientifically accurate, that is written in a way to be understandable to anyone who might pick it up to try to read it. And I start each chapter with a myth or a statement or comment that I've heard across the years from a variety of patients and loved ones and friends. And so In Control is the name of the book. And if they go through incontrolbook.com, I'll send a signed copy. If they go through Amazon, it's not signed, but it is available on Amazon as well and at Barnes.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so much. Great conversation. And we definitely will get that information out there for you. And hopefully you can become our sex therapist on the show on a regular basis.
Yes, I'd love to come back and talk with y'all. Thanks for inviting me.
Okay. You have a great one.
Okay, y'all too.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
That was excellent.
Yes, it was.
She gave a lot of information, and I think, our community definitely need to talk about this topic out in the open, so it won't be so taboo. Yeah. So
Indeed.
I think that was great.
Mm-hmm.
And let us move on.
Like this. Keep on.
All right.
Okay, so today we want to highlight our little known Black history fact. And today we want to talk about Shirley Graham Du Bois. Shirley Graham Du Bois was born in 1896 in Indianapolis, Indiana. Her father, David A. Graham, was an AME minister, and her mother, Etta Bell Graham, was an activist within the church. She was raised to appreciate Black culture and music, and from a young age, her parents instilled in her the importance of social justice and uplifting the Black community. She wrote her first editorial to an Indianapolis newspaper protesting racial discrimination when she was 13, after she was denied access to a YWCA swimming pool. Throughout her life, she continued to advocate for the Black community. Now, before she married W.E.B. Du Bois in 1951, she had earned a national reputation as a playwright, composer, conductor, director, political activist, and author. After briefly attending the Sorbonne in France, Columbia University, Howard University, and Morgan State College in Baltimore, Maryland, she received her bachelor's and master's degree in fine arts and music history from Oberlin College in 1934 and 1935. In 1932, she became the first Black woman to write and produce an opera with an all-Black cast. It was called Tom Toms, an epic of music and the Negro. It represented her desire to preserve Black music, particularly spirituals, which she was concerned Black people would abandon. She used the sound of the tom-tom drum to tell the history of Black Americans beginning on African soil. Her goal was to connect the Black community to their roots, something beyond the history of their enslavement. Between 1938 and 1940, Graham wrote and produced 5 plays. Of the 5 plays, It's Morning is the most notable. It tells the story of an enslaved woman who kills her teenage daughter to protect her from their owner. In 1943, she became the National Field Secretary for the NAACP for a year before turning her attention to writing biographies of famous Black Americans, with the goal of teaching young people about Black history. Between 1944 and 1976, she published 13 book-length biographies featuring figures such as George Washington Carver, Paul Robeson, Frederick Douglass, Phyllis Wheatley, Booker T. Washington, and of course, W.E.B. Du Bois. Her biography of Douglass, called There Was Once a Slave, won the Julian Messner Award for being the best book combating intolerance in America. And the award included a prize of $6,500. Again, in 1951, Graham married W.E.B. Du Bois when she was 54 and he was 83 years old. Together, the couple fought side by side to improve the life of underrepresented groups in the United States. In 1961, they both renounced their United States citizenship and became citizens of Ghana. When her husband died in Ghana in 1963, she took over a number of his unfinished projects. Now widowed and without a U.S. passport, Graham Du Bois stayed in Ghana until 1966 when she was forced to leave after the president of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah, was overthrown. She moved to Cairo in 1966 after briefly living and obtaining citizenship in Tanzania. For the next decade, she traveled throughout Africa, Asia, Europe, and the United States, promoting anti-imperialism and anti-colonialism. She remained devoted to the causes of liberation for African and Black people and world peace. In 1977, she passed away in Beijing, China, after being diagnosed with breast cancer. Shirley Graham Du Bois, the very accomplished playwright, composer, conductor, director, and author who also happened to be married to civil rights activist W.E.B. Du Bois.
That is awesome.
Yeah, we often hear about W.E.B. Du Bois, but not the woman that was beside him, working alongside him as a civil rights and political activist as well. So that's good to know.
Let us move on. And let us move on.
Don't stop now.
All right. So we are to our third plug of the day, which is our podcast plug always. And as those who are watching, it is Drink Champs with Nori and DJ Effin. They've had a lot of interviews that went viral, but most notably, it is the Kanye West interview. Check them out. They have a lot of viewers. They do a good show. The kind of like the platform or the structure of the show is they're drinking while they're being interviewed and smoking too. But they're drinking alcohol, and so some people have revealed a lot because when you get inebriated, these things can happen. So check out Drink Champs. That is our podcast plug for the week.
And let us move on.
Oh.
And let us move on.
You can get with this, or you can get with this, or you can get with that. You can get with this, or you can get with that. I think you go with this, because this is where it's at. You can get with this, or you can get with that. You can get with this, or you can get with that. You can get with this, or you can get with that. I think you go with this, because this is kind of that.
All right, so our this or that this week is New York City versus DC. Now I'm a native of Long Island, New York. Long Island.
And I'm a native of DC. What?
Yeah, Washington, D.C. So I'm just saying that. But I did, after I graduated from Morgan State University, I moved back to New York City. And I lived in the city for a while. Growing up, I used to visit my late uncle in Harlem. Fell in love with Harlem. Great place to be. So New York City, living in New York City as a young Black professional, I guess you can call me. I was working at Channel 2 News at the time. I had a great time. I think 5 of my best years were my 5 years after graduating from college. You know, people usually say their 4 years in college is their best years. And I had a great time at Morgan State University, definitely in Baltimore, Maryland. But I think my 5 years after college was just a whirlwind. Met some beautiful people at work. Had access to a lot. But why do I like New York City? Fast pace, healthy in the sense that you're walking a lot, you're catching the train. I tell people, you move to New York City for the first time, probably going to lose like 10, 15 pounds in the first 3 months. because you go up and down stairs and up and down blocks and in and out of buildings. It is definitely a walking city. Um, there
And the
so many
blocks seem to be
things.
longer too.
Uh, I think the city block is the city block.
Okay.
Um, but the culture in New York, the diversity, like everything is in New York. Like you got Chinatown, you go to
We
Queens,
got a Chinatown too.
like
We
well,
can go.
let
We
me
can go
finish
tit
with
for
my
tat.
New York City, then you and
We can
and,
go
and
tit
my
for tat.
DC too. Um, and New York City just has a lot of culture all over. It never sleeps. I do agree with that. Sometimes, like it can be 2 o'clock in the morning, and it seems like 2 o'clock in the afternoon because these restaurants would be open and so many people would be out, especially during the warmer climates. You have Broadway, you have the Apollo, you have Harlem, you have Brooklyn, Prospect Park, Botanical Gardens. Um, y- in Queens, you had the World Fair. Uh, a lot of hip hop in Queens and the Bronx. A lot of hip hop in New York. Um, so there's so much to do. You have nine. Well, in that tri-state area, you have 9 professional teams: Yankees, Mets, Giants, Jets, uh, Knicks, Nets, and then you have the Islanders, the Rangers, and then the Devils play right across the bridge in Jersey. So, like I said, there's a lot going on. A lot of movies that are shot in New York. The music industry is in New York. The UN is in New York. The Empire State Building, Statue of the Liberty, the Circle Line. So there's a lot to do. There's a lot of culture. There's a lot of food. I think New York gets a bad rap because they say people from New York is rude. I don't like to say New York is rude. Maybe a little impatient, but I won't say rude. And as far, and Kim's going to give her take on both. When I moved to Baltimore, Maryland, and I went to Morgan State University, I met so many good people from Washington, D.C. And Washington,
Including
D.C.
me.
was, yes, Chocolate City. And when I say it was Chocolate City, I know gentrification has taken over. It was a great city, and I'm hearing more great things about it now. Man, I have a lot of friends that grew up in Washington, D.C., still reside there. So, but if I had to pick one, I'm going to stick with my hometown of New York. But DC is definitely my second city. What say you about the two cities?
I knew you would pick New York because you're from New York, but guess what? I'm going to pick DC because I'm from DC. And I agree with everything you said, but just on general principles, I got to rep my city. So I'm going to pick DC. Now, you talked about New York and everything you said was right, but I always say New York is a nice place to visit, but I would not want to live there because it is astronomically priced. There's too many people, it's dirty in places, and it's just too much. People are rude and everything is like super expensive. But you can just fall into any restaurant by accident. The food is going to be off the chart. It's going to be amazing. It's going to cost you a grip, but it's going to be amazing. So I do agree with that. The food, the culture, just the attractions. It's a beautiful city, and I mean it's aptly named the Big Apple, and it is the city that never sleeps. So I'll give you that. But
So nice to have to name it twice.
okay, New York, New York.
Yeah.
But guess what? Let me brag about my city. All right. So, we have, you said you have hip hop in New York, and that is the birthplace of hip hop. But guess what we got?
Go, go.
Go, go.
Yeah.
Okay. And once that gets into your spirit, it just moves you. And we also have mumbo sauce. Which y'all got? What can y'all do with that? Nothing. Okay.
Yeah.
We got museums, we got all of that. And we got museums, we got tourist attractions, we've got beautiful parks, we got National Zoo, we got, Rock Creek Park to your Central Park. We got the African American Museum. You can't beat that. We got cherry blossoms. What you got in New York? You don't have no cherry blossoms.
I'm sure there are cherry blossoms in New York,
But not like how we have ours in around the
I mean, the African American Museum is dope.
right.
I understand that, but don't say what New York has. New York has the Guggenheim. They had
Excuse me, you had your turn. It's my turn.
No, you asked me. I had to respond. You said what we got. I'm just coming up. Yeah, there's a lot of museums in New York. The Museum of Harlem. The Harlem Museum, I should say, on 125th Street. So yeah, we got some museums.
And to trump all of that, and we also have, the universities. We got sport teams too.
Yeah.
We got the Wizards, we got the Commanders, we got the DC United, we got the Capitals, we got we got some sports teams too. And then
what's your baseball team name? The Nationals. Okay.
Yeah, to top it all, the baseball team, we got the Nationals, and to trump all of what you just said,
he's a little dirty too now. Let's keep it a buck.
Listen, those aren't rats, those aren't cats.
Okay.
Those are stray cats. They are not rats. No. But we got Georgetown, and then we also are the seat of power. You cannot trump that. Okay.
Yeah,
we have the federal government, and we have the seat of
we have the UN, that
nation's capital.
We have the UN. We have the UN. That's global.
Oh God. Okay. All right. Global. Okay. Let's do this. Let's call it even. Even Steven.
We can. We can call it that.
All right.
So
and let us move on.
Well, all right.
Oh, hell no. All right. So this oh, hell no is not the best one, but it is an oh, hell no. So we had to do it. We had to be fair. We couldn't be unfair, but Mark Ridley Thomas, he got convicted of fraud. What he did was funnel contracts, city contracts, over to the University of Southern California in exchange for his son to attend graduate school there free of cost and have a professorship where he would get paid. Now, at Texas A&M, they have a similar program that I was accepted in. It pays your tuition. You get a professorship. You teach. Well, when I first got there, it was a 2-2. Now it's a 1-1. So it went from a 2-2 to a 2-1 to a 1-1. What does that mean? That means each semester, when I first started, you taught two courses. Now you teach one course and you get paid for it. They get you on the cheap. It's cheaper than the adjunct professor, but they still pay you while you're in school, and you make some money, not a lot. And I think that was going to be the hookup, but he got caught. And a lot of people testified, like, in his behalf, like, how great a man this was. I think he served for like 40 years, and he was a trailblazer, and he did a lot, but sometimes temptation gets the best of us. And he got busted for this. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that, he was found guilty of 7 felonies here for basically bribery. And, I think I'm kind of torn because obviously this was wrong for him to do. Obviously it was unethical. But I mean, first of all, Black politicians are always going to be punished more harshly. I think probably many politicians are unethical, similarly unethical. But I think Black people have to know that there's going to be a disparate impact if we are convicted of these types of charges. So it would behoove us to, at all costs, try to avoid being in these kinds of situations when the public trust has been entrusted to you, and you are a public servant. Um, it's good when we can hold these positions of power, because we can spread the resources and the wealth around, so that it's not always going to one part of our society, but it is equitably distributed. So in some sense, it's great when we have this kind of power and we can use it appropriately. But here it appears as if this politician was basically being selfish and enriching himself here, as opposed to, equitably distributing resources that he had control over here. So this was just for his, to make sure his son got a scholarship, and to make sure his son got into this particular school, and to make sure his son had money funneled into his nonprofit. And so,
I don't know. The thing that gets me about that, like, you're a powerful person in California. You know a lot of powerful people. So I would think just his letter of recommendations and
thank you.
his work and what have you would have gotten him in there. And if he didn't earn the scholarship, why try to get it for him? But, it's sad, you love your son, you try to do the best, but also I guess you were doing the best for yourself too, because you didn't want to pay any money to USC. And I get it. It saves you a dime, but I know he probably regrets that now.
Right.
So
it's not worth it.
40 years in this, great work, maybe tarnished.
I'm sure it's, I was just going to add, I'm sure it's tempting, because I'm sure they see other people getting away with it. You know what I mean? And so they kind of get, I think, roped into trying to do the same thing. Yeah. They try to get roped into doing the same thing because they see other people getting away with it. But like I said, we're not all treated equitably or equally in these situations. So again, it would behoove us to, stay on the straight and narrow.
Yeah. And let us move on.
Give it up, give it up, give it up, yo. Give it up, give it up, gotta give it up. Give it up, give it up, give it up, yeah. Give it up, give it up.
All right. So this week we're going to give it up to a fraternity brother of mine who is also the governor of the state of Maryland. His name is Governor Wes Moore. He invited the Alphas to the governor's mansion, and he said a lot he learned from his fraternity he uses to govern the state of Maryland. So yes, we're giving it up. Those of you who are watching on YouTube see that I have on my 1906 sweatshirt. And they are throwing up the ice signs at the governor's mansion. So that's a great thing. So yeah, we're going to give it up to Governor Wes Moore, who's also frat.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. That will conclude our show today. And to recap, as we always do, our three plugs were New Balance, Google, and Drink Champs. Our words, our wow for the week were the triumph can't be had without the struggle. That came from Wilma Rudolph. I always want to say William. All right. We covered the Nashville shooting, the Trump indictment, and the Ebony Alert bill. Question of the week. What is always coming but never arrives? We had a beautiful interview with Dr. Madeline Sutton. Little known Black history fact this week was Shirley Graham Du Bois. We did a this or that with New York City versus Washington, D.C. Of course, New York City took home that. Our All Hell No segment went to Mark Ridley Thomas, and we gave it up to Governor Wes Moore. So for inviting the Alphas to the governor mansion. So in pardon.
Yes, so thank you everybody for taking time out of your busy schedule to hang out with us. And as always in parting, we wish you love, peace, and soul.
And we will see you next week for episode 14. Thanks for riding along with us.